Learn to fly. Hop into the cockpit with me for a typical flight lesson. My name is Patrick and I'm a flight student in Estonia. I hope you'll follow my journey through flight school on Echo Sierra Aviation. After a long winter with no flying, I'm really excited to get back into the cockpit. This flight is from last summer. Like many of my flight lessons, we're heading down to Zone 6, our training area, south of Tallinn. It's a little bit of rain and some clouds, but nothing to be too worried about. We're pointed east and lined up and ready to go. The plane I'm flying has a 10-meter wingspan, and the runway is about 5 times that. So I figure if I pay for the full runway, I should use the full runway. Most planes tend to pull a little bit to the left. That takes a little bit of getting used to, and this is only my second flight. It doesn't take too long to get into the air. I'm going to climb straight ahead for a while before I turn right to head to the training area. Because it's a warm sunny day and there's 2 heavy guys in the front, the plane takes a little bit of time to climb to a safe altitude. As we pass the de-icing pad to the left, we know that we're just past the threshold now. We're at a safe altitude, so it's time to start turning towards our destination. I've skipped ahead a little bit to the edge of Tallinn's control zone. As I get into the practice area, I get used to each of my controls. The ailerons are primarily used to roll the plane, but they've got a secondary effect of yawing the plane as well. The rudders are primarily used to yaw the plane, but they roll the plane as well. The elevator pitches up and down, and its secondary effect is to increase or decrease the speed. I practice coordinated turns right and left, where aileron inputs and rudder inputs are balanced to provide a consistent turning speed. It's hard not to be distracted by the sun peeking out through those clouds, though. We don't normally descend by just pitching down, because that would increase the speed too much. Instead, we pull the power back and let the plane descend itself. And when I want to level off, I add more throttle. Throughout training, we continuously prepare for emergencies. One of those is an engine out situation, which we prepare for by getting used to how a glide feels. I pull the throttle back to idle and then adjust my pitch for the best glide speed. At glide, this plane definitely descends much quicker than is comfortable. When I do steep turns, I have to apply back pressure on the yoke and add a little bit of throttle just to maintain altitude. When we're flying near the airport under visual flight rules, we fly in a traffic circuit. The traffic circuit is a rectangle around the active runway that allows air traffic control, pilots, basically everybody, to sequence and predict what everybody else is doing. The traffic circuit is divided into 5 legs. It starts with the upwind or departure leg, goes to the crosswind leg, and then the downwind leg, the base leg, and final. If you're doing a touch and go or a go around, it starts over again from there. But we don't get used to the traffic circuit at the airport. Instead, we practice in the practice area. We'll pick an altitude to represent ground, in this case about 2,000 feet, and then we execute all the maneuvers that would be appropriate in the traffic circuit for the relative altitudes. I start out on the departure leg with takeoff flaps and full power for a climb to about 600 feet. It takes a while to get there. The Cessna 150 is not exactly a high-performance plane. As I get to about 600 feet above ground, we start our turn to the next leg, the crosswind leg. We're going to continue to climb through the turn here to about 1,000 feet above ground. Each of the turns is 90 degrees to the left, so if the runway is pointed west, we're going to end up on the crosswind pointed south. As we get to the end of our turn, we level off and continue to climb. As I get to about 1,000 feet above ground, I'm going to start to turn left again, this time turning towards the downwind. I'm also going to level off here at the 1,000 feet by pulling my throttle back to cruise power. Midway through downwind, we start preparing for landing. I make sure my mixture is rich, make sure the carb heat is on. I check my speed and extend flaps to 10 degrees, and I make sure that the landing lights are on. If I were actually at an airport, it'd be at this point that I'd announce to tower what my intentions are, whether I want to do a touch and go or a full stop landing. About 30 seconds after I pass the runway on my left, I start to pull back throttle to start to descend and start to turn towards the base. At this point, if I were near an airport, I'd actually be able to see the runway just off to my left. Just before the runway, I turn towards it. It's not like driving a car. The turn lags behind the control input a bit, so you have to judge when you turn against the wind a little bit. Once the turn's completed, we do some final checks. Make sure mixture's rich, carb heat is on, landing lights are on, and the flaps are how we want them. If we keep approach speed to where we want it, about 70 to 75 miles per hour, we should descend at the right rate for a perfect landing. The flaps add a fair amount of drag and slow us down quite a bit. As we get to just above ground, we round out and cut power to idle. After we touch down, we don't want carb heat, so we turn that off. If we're planning a touch and go, we also need the flaps retracted. Otherwise, we won't be able to climb too effectively. And now we cycle back to the beginning of the circuit with the upwind or departure leg. After a successful training session, we're going to head back to the airport and put this into practice. I'll go through the traffic circuit and conduct a few landings. While we've been gone, the wind has shifted and the runway in use is now runway 26, pointed west. So I'll turn right to the east and join the downwind. I'll do my downwind checks or before landing checks, make sure that mixture's rich, make sure that the carb heat is on, check my speed and set my flaps to the first notch, and I'll turn my landing light on. About halfway through downwind, I tell tower that I am downwind and that I'm planning on doing a touch and go landing. Unfortunately, ATC has let us know that there's arriving traffic and has asked us to do some orbits at the end of our downwind so that we extend out the time before we land. This happens fairly frequently flying out of an international airport. We don't want to get in the way of any of those big jets. So I'll just keep circling here until ATC tells us it's safe to continue. Right about here, ATC tells me to continue my approach. So I finish the circle that I'm on, I reduce my RPM to about 1900, and I start the base turn. ATC lets us know that arriving traffic unfortunately took a little bit longer than expected to land, so there's some wake turbulence. We can let that wake turbulence dissipate by taking a little bit longer in base by doing one orbit at the end of base. Because this isn't a typical maneuver, my flight instructor will take controls and then hand them back to me once we're established on final. As we're established on final, my flight instructor hands the controls back to me. I do my final checks, make sure the mixture is rich, the carb heat is on, the landing light is on, and set the flaps to the landing setting, in this case 40 degrees. And we're going to aim for 70 to 75 miles per hour, and we pitch up and down to adjust that speed. You might be able to make out the PAPI or Precision Approach Path indicator lights just to the left of the runway. These lights are arranged so if you see 2 whites and 2 reds, you're right on the glide slope, descending at the right rate for a safe landing. If you see 3 whites and a red, you're a little bit high. If you see 4 whites, you're definitely too high. If you see a white and 3 reds, you're a little bit low. And if you see 4 reds, you're definitely low. I'm trying to land on the 1,000-foot markers right beside the PAPIs. I round off and cut power. And I've successfully landed for the first time. That is an absolute rush. Time to get carb heat off, flaps up, and let's go. Now with a little bit of crosswind, it's even more difficult to maintain centerline. And I'm back in the air for the departure upwind leg again. It's a little bit more bumpy for this takeoff. But at least this time it's climbing a little bit better. We've got less fuel and it's a little bit chillier, so performance is a little bit better. The sun's a little lower in the sky, and since we're going west, it's shining right in my eyes. And now it's time to start that climbing turn to crosswind. Now I'm going to keep climbing to about 1,100 feet. Wow, would you look at that rainbow? And it's already time to turn on to the downwind. As I do my turn, I pull the throttle back to cruise power. Quick check over my shoulder to the left and verify that I'm parallel to the runway I departed from. Time to get ready for landing with downwind checks. Make sure that the mixture is rich, carb heat is on, check my speed and extend flaps, and turn my landing light on. I'm also going to give ATC a call and let them know that I want to do a full stop landing on runway 26. About here I pass the runway on my left. I'm at about 45 degrees to the runway now, so it's time to start the base turn. I pull throttle back and start my turn. At Tallinn Airport, we use the jail right in front of us to judge whether our base is lined up right. I see the runway off to my left, so it's time to start final turn. As it turns out, I waited a little bit long because we've got a bit of a crosswind that's pushing me to the north. So I'll correct that by continuing a little bit more to the left and then line up for final. You should be able to make out the Pappies to the left of the runway again. I'm a little bit high, so I reduce power a bit. And I'm more or less back on slope. As we pass over the threshold, it looks like I'm a bit low, but the Pappies are not particularly accurate close to the ground. And I'm safely back on the ground. I'll exit the runway by the first available taxiway and head over to our parking at Yankee 5.